Hello, Jared here. I decided not to use my alias this time, which was FX Screamer, mainly because the art that I sign is using my actual initials, and I think it sounds a little bit silly sometimes saying FX Screamer when I do these videos. So for now on, I'm just going to keep it as Jared, and we'll keep it at that. So I'm back quite a bit sooner than I thought on these talking videos, and I don't know if this is going to be a normal thing, but I decided to make a couple more possibly regarding beginning areas of young artists or starting artists that want to get their footing. And I've received a lot of questions in the past that people ask often, and one of those is how to stay motivated. Like, how do you find the inspiration? How do you keep going? For me, one of the best ways to stay motivated was finding that personal fuel source, that inspiration. The whole reason I picked up the pencil again after all these years was that I accidentally stumbled onto an indie game a couple years ago called Dust: An Elysian Tale, which some people may have played, and I will say right now that it's actually a really good game. There were two main things that motivated me after playing that game. And I wouldn't say that the art style was my absolute favorite, but what it did is it kind of rebooted that childhood nostalgia in me, taking me back to the Saturday mornings in the 90s, and I had never seen a game capture that so well. And I was like a kid again when I was playing it, and I got really excited. The other big reason that I got motivated was when I learned more about the game and who made it. The guy that made it, his name was Dean Dodrill, and he didn't even know how to program a game when he started it. He was an artist, but he didn't know how to program. And over the course of 4 years, he did that game almost completely himself. He did bring in a writer, and of course, he brought in some people for music. But for the most part, the guy tackled almost the entire game, and I thought that was incredibly inspiring. And the fact that one man could take on something so monumental, why couldn't I start on just one craft? Start on art and then tackle it with everything that I've got. But for me, it wasn't just drawing or doing art. I also knew I wanted to tell a story with it, which really helps motivating your art. Um, for people that just draw to draw, that's great. If you're just trying to pass the time and get an idea down, that's great. But I do find that if you can have a story built in behind your character or behind what you draw, even if it's a landscape, even if it's a car, imagine the car just came from a car wash. I don't know. But creating that purpose is what's going to help your art come through a lot more. This character that I'm drawing here in front of you, this is one of my characters, Ivan, who all last year was a villain, and this is the first time that I have shifted him from being a villain to an anti-hero. And through that, I am having to redesign how much of an a-hole he is and how much of a good guy he is, because I need to create a likable factor, but he's still kind of a prick. um, but what I'm trying to say from before is there's many times where I can sit down and draw a character or draw a piece, and I can find myself laughing or smiling or, somber, or dare I say even teary-eyed, depending on the subject matter of what I'm trying to draw. Because I'll say now that I do put emotion into my work, and what I've learned is that shows through your art. And people really do respond to that. And if you can laugh when you draw something, people will see that in what you drew. It's very important to, in my opinion, personalize your art a bit, especially if you're designing characters. One parallel that I want to make about that was I saw a speech by Louis C.K. When he was talking about his career and his inspirations and what motivated him, which one of them was the great and late George Carlin. And Louis C.K., like most celebrities, did not become famous overnight. He was working on his craft diligently for 10 years, at least, if I'm paraphrasing him correctly. And one of the big things that he said that stuck with me, because I think it translates everywhere, is that the moment he started personalizing his jokes and digging deep into himself, the audience started responding, and that's when he started getting his ground. So, whether it's art or being a comedian, reaching down deep can really speak to people, and I highly encourage that. For me personally, the way that I stay motivated might sound silly to some, but it works for me. Uh, with character art, um, I like the idea of creating life. I'm not just putting graphite on paper or just lines in a computer. I'm trying to create a character with a name, a backstory that thinks, that has feelings, and whatever that may be. I'm creating life. I don't want it just to look like a drawing. I want it to look like that character could jump off the page. They look so convincing. And by drawing those characters, I've almost had this sense of duty that I have to keep going in order to flesh them out, to make them more recognized, to make them have even a bigger purpose. And as the story keeps developing, I'm starting to truly world build, and that's where you really see your creations come to life. So that's what kind of keeps me going. Just the idea that every time I draw a character or every time I reinvent a character, they're getting that much closer to the true vision, to that thing, whatever that was that I've been after all this time. Now, I'll admit there are days that I feel burned out. When you're trying to draw every day for a couple hours, like we're talking 7 days a week, it can be draining, and there are times you got to take a break, and there's nothing wrong with taking a break. But sometimes I need to juice my inspiration a little bit. I mean, I know what I'm after. I have an array of characters already lined up, so the content is there, but why am I running out of ideas? Why am I running out of things to draw? You can hit writer's block or artist block even when you have a whole template of ideas to pick from. And sometimes it just takes going back to the basics, or maybe that day you don't draw, kick back with something that inspires you. Like maybe I'll throw on a Disney movie from an artist that I've been inspired by. One of them would be Glenn Keane. So if I was inspired by Glenn Keane, what am I going to do? Oh, it's Friday night. I really don't feel like drawing. But hey, let's go ahead and throw on Beauty and the Beast, or let's throw on Aladdin, or let's watch Paperman, which by the way, is one of my favorite little animated shorts ever. But even The Little Mermaid, because that's Glenn Keane, and that's where that staple look really began, like that new renaissance of Disney animation. So yeah, I watched those again as an adult rather than a kid, and it's always interesting when you watch it for technically studying purposes. It doesn't feel like I'm wasting time. I mean, I do get to the point where, oh, I need to draw today, but as long as I'm doing something that is going to help me in my art or juice my ideas, like help me really find a path to go down, it's not time wasted. You know, it's going back to basics. It's going back to remind yourself, what started this all in the first place. Now, I'm speaking about this in regard to character design, but as some people know, the whole point of this is to go after and do a graphic novel. And I've recently been working with a writer, and one of the things that he told me is that you need to read more comics, Jared. And he's absolutely right. And that's what I've been doing. So I will actually take nights where I'm reading graphic novels. I'm studying the pacing, I'm studying layouts, the way that they're doing the art, color, the way the colors are done. I can sit there and have an enjoyable experience, but at the same time, I'm doing homework. And on another level, I'm also gaining maybe some inspiration. But again, you can't just sit there and only work in the field. You do have to go back to the classroom. And sometimes the classroom doesn't even have to be boring. It can be really, really fun. But I will say, do not stay in the classroom forever. Uh, a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll just watch tutorials all day long. They'll do all these things and say they're gearing up, you're working towards the drawing. No, no, no. This might be a subjective number, and it really doesn't mean anything. People could disagree with me on this, but I would say, I mean, if you're trying to get better and work on your craft, your drawing should be, I would say, at least a 70% in the field and 30% in the classroom, maybe an 80% in the field. But you definitely need to be putting in the work, as I've said in previous videos. So definitely don't use the excuse of watching a movie or reading a graphic novel, 5 nights a week, and you're only drawing on the Saturday or Sunday. Well, I'm going to keep this video a little shorter, so I hope this did help anyone that struggles with the artist block or staying motivated. I hope there's some ideas here that hopefully weren't too obvious, but for me they work. So I'm speaking about kind of where I come from. Everyone has their own methods, but this is what I would suggest as a starting point for anyone that's looking for that answer. So thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe below, and I'll see you next time.